Dear Rowdy, I knew you were a pathetic excuse for an internet personality, but I didn't know you were also a paranoid twit. I have better things to do with my life than to send people like you bad shows just so you can make more bad videos about them. Go take your conspiracy theories somewhere else. P.S. Your voice still sucks. Guys, put Asa Larry back down to the maybe list! Valentine's is around the corner again, so we might as well spend this episode of TV Trash showing appreciation for the one true love of geeks everywhere. Fictional female superheroes. It was just less than a year ago that I paid tribute to the original Pink Ranger, Kimberly Ann Hart, a true pioneer in the belief that a female could be graceful and still kick ass at the same time. Well, as many viewers pointed out, Kimberly may have been the first, but that doesn't mean those that followed her aren't worthy of their own accolades. For 2 decades, Pink Rangers have exemplified beauty, grace, love, and determination, combining strength with compassion to prove they could be tough defenders of justice and still have heart at the same time. So let's give the remaining magenta warriors of virtue the credit and appreciation they deserve. These are my picks for the top 10 best moments of the other Pink Rangers. Kat restores Tommy's memory. Catherine is another Pink Ranger that sadly has been very underappreciated by history and gets an unjust amount of hate just for replacing Kimberly, and I'm one of Kimberly's biggest fans out there. At any rate, Kat really came into her own in Power Rangers Zeo, and it was a tough call to what her best moment was. I almost went with when she stopped the Digster monster from sending a lava flow into Angel Grove with a bad leg. But this is the one that really hit home for me. In a 3-part special, Tommy was abducted by Mondo's rogue son Gasket and brainwashed into thinking he was the king of the Machine Empire. Yeah, Tommy seemed to have a problem with getting brainwashed a lot. Which led to this Coliseum fight between him and Jason, who was the Gold Ranger at the time, but when the other Rangers arrive, it's Kat taking up Zordon's advice that their friendship is their greatest weapon that figures out the solution.
Zeo-1, power down!
What? Catherine, are you sure you know what you're doing?
He has to see us. Tommy, don't do this! Please. It's me, Catherine.
Catherine, do not listen to her, sire!
I know in an action series like this, the peaceful route isn't always the most popular with viewers, but it works big time in this case. Breaking such a spell with Tommy's own memories, rather than just destroying some object that was part of the control, like in Green with Evil, really works better with the subconscious message of friendship and loyalty that Power Rangers has always had. And for the record, I believe this was the first episode where we ever saw the Rangers powering down, so there's that.
Tommy, I know you're in there.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Come back to us. It's okay.
They are your enemies, you fool! Destroy them!
I don't think so, Gasket. Seal 5, out down!
No!
You're my enemy. I'm leaving with my friends.
This is also probably a reflection of why Kat was unjustly reviled by too many, who thought she got in between Tommy and Kim, which wasn't the case at all. Either way, it was the first of multiple times we're going to see on this list where a Pink Ranger showed that something other than a gun or a punch could be a much better weapon in the fight against evil. Cassie befriends a monster. On the flip side, I admit to being one of those that shook my head at Cassie getting the Pink Ranger powers in Turbo, given her attitude toward TJ and his desire to be a Power Ranger. But then again, there were a lot of things in Turbo that didn't make any sense. And as I was putting together this list, Cassie was still the one that was the most difficult to find a really great moment for, even as she continued into the much improved Power Rangers in Space. But there was one episode early on in that series. The episode Wasp with a Heart was about a monster called Waspicable that actually was not a beast created by the big villain. It was actually a kind-hearted intergalactic creature that fell into the bad crowd of Astronomer's monster Sting King. But when it ends up fighting Cassie one-on-one, it finds itself unable to finish the job, leading it into this existential crisis about whether or not it's really evil.
You're not gonna fire? You're a monster with a heart.
Who, me? A heart? Monsters don't have hearts. I'll prove it.
No, don't!
No, it's no use. I'm a failure.
Don't be so hard on yourself, Waspicable. It's good that you didn't fire.
And because of this compassion Cassie shows toward him, he ultimately can't destroy her a second time when unmorphed and overpowered. Though I'm still not exactly sure how he knew Cassie was the Pink Ranger. I liked the idea that there could exist monsters that aren't pure evil and might have emotions and humanity. And while Cassie could still be a dimwit at times, it was nice that she could be the one to see the softer side in this beast. And this wouldn't be the only case of this happening with a Pink Ranger, as we'll see. Emma's power of song. Let me say this first. What I've seen so far from Power Rangers Megaforce is freaking awesome. Saban truly looked to honor the original series with this 20th anniversary season. There are a lot of references to Mighty Morphin that admittedly started as early as the Samurai seasons, including not just the revised version of Ron Wasserman's original theme, but a few episodes with some classically goofy storylines. Like Harmony and Discord, when a monster is recruited whose power is that he plays terrible music that they plan to torture the planet with. Insert your own Bieber Rebecca Black jokes here.
Can't concentrate. That noise!
Then you can't win this fight either. I knew I would find your weakness, Rangers. And now I will finish you all! Huh? Huh? What is that horrible sound?
What? Who is that?
Is it Emma?
I didn't know Emma could sing.
Hey, you're ruining my big moment! No!
Yeah, Emma's voice, amplified by Troy's Morpher, take out the monster's music and broadcast signal. Makes me wonder, could Alanis Morissette be destroyed with the power of Desiree Goyette? Yeah, I'm willing to bet that wasn't actually Christina Masterson singing, and the lyrics aren't exactly Bohemian Rhapsody, but it is a nice, sweet tune that's still better than everything on Sonic Underground, and it harkens back to the days when the Rangers would find creative, if not silly, ways of beating down their opposition. Mia comforts Spike. The Samurai season saw the return of Bulk and his new lackey Spike as they begin training as samurai warriors. In the Super Samurai episode Runaway Spike, the two are majorly behind in their rent, which leads Spike to run off and try to fund everything himself, only to keep failing at each job he gets. It bums him out so much that he actually sits in a corner moping while the Rangers are battling a monster nearby. However, this draws Mia's attention, and she realizes what is needed at that time.
I can't keep a normal job. How can I ever expect to be a samurai?
A samurai?
Yeah, I've, been training.
Well, I've heard that part of being a samurai is to never give up. No matter how hard things are, you keep going until you make it. You have to believe in yourself.
Speaking as someone who's needed this kind of pickup on a number of occasions, this is just a simple but real touching moment, which carries over to the rest of the Rangers, realizing they can't give up against a monster that seemed to be too tough for them. It goes to show how a few simple words can often make a whole lot of difference. Vita aids Matumbo. As the Terrors acquired the Master in the final episodes of the Mystic Force season, Matumbo is the one chosen to bring him back into the world. The thing is, Matumbo is willing to bring back the Master, but he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Realizing this, Vita uses it to the Rangers' advantage, going so far as to defend Matumbo from the other Rangers and the other Terrors. With this, she and the other Rangers look to take Matumbo to the sleeping lake of the Dawn Dimension where he can sleep forever, with Vita even willing to disguise herself to distract the Terrors so Matumbo can get away. Sadly, it doesn't work in the end, as Matumbo is intercepted and still used to restore the Master. One could argue that this episode was a copycat of Wasp with a Heart, but maybe it was done as an homage to that episode. This was when it looks like the Power Rangers really started setting up references to the older series, especially with the reveal of a certain character in the finale of this season. Either way, it was a nice touch to include one more monster that maybe had just a spark of good in him. And of course, it was a Pink Ranger that noticed that. Now, I'm thinking a number of you are getting a little antsy that what I've shown on this list so far hasn't had a lot of action, but there has been a point to this. Pink Rangers are capable warriors, and we will see examples of this, but once again, they are also usually the kindest and most compassionate, and the first half of this list was meant to showcase that above all else. But don't worry, we'll see some examples of Pink Rangers kicking butt and taking names right after this. Sid and her dog. When this episode of SPD started, it didn't really endear me to Sid, as she came off as a real diva who was especially whiny about the team's robot dog Rick. But then Rick comes to her aid, getting severely trashed in the process, and this causes her to pull a complete 180 on the mechanical mutt, especially once she's told the dog likely can't be repaired since his parts are obsolete. It's actually a pretty big comparison to being told a pet has to be put down. Fortunately, in this case, the technicians Rich and Boom are up to the task of majorly upgrading Rick, and afterward, Sid has to prove Rick is still valuable in finding where the monster Rhinox is keeping the slime that he's turned humans into. Just go with that. She's so determined to prove Rick works in tracking the stuff that she continues digging in the pouring rain, and this, remember, is the one Pink Ranger that pretty much has acted like a total princess diva. Still, her perseverance pays off and she finds Rhinox's lair, and then she and Rick team up to finish him off.
How cool is that?
A
a canine cannon. I love it.
While SPD appears to have drawn its critics as the series went on, the first few episodes did a pretty good job establishing the personas of its Rangers, and this one showed Sid to be a much more complex character than one might originally think. Maybe, just maybe, it may encourage some of us to look differently at other divas like Lucy Van Pelt. Nah! Dana vs. Memorace. The Lightspeed Rescue episode, The Last Ranger, was about the monster Memorace wiping all the Rangers' memories, which is pretty much a rehash of a certain Mighty Morphin episode. Regardless, Dana is the one Ranger who wasn't hit because she was tending to civilians at the time. Ms. Fairweather looks to restore the other Rangers by feeding their memories back to them, but naturally Memorace returns before it's finished, and the machine is damaged before it can restore Carter the Red Ranger, so Dana has to go out and take on Memorace herself. Mind you, it doesn't go well for her even once the others return, but her willingness to stand up to the monster is what finally restores Carter's memory. And while the other Rangers have to deal with the Mooks, Carter and Dana team up as well as Kimberly and Tommy ever could to take out Memorace. This one makes it for two reasons. It shows off Dana's need to help the innocent directly, once again a Pink Ranger staple, which is what spares her from the mind wipe, and her courage to face a monster like Memorace, who did a pretty good number on the Rangers in the first battle. One of the better episodes to show the two main personality traits of her type. Carone confronts her past. Right after Carone assumed the Pink Galaxy Ranger powers, she was still having to come to terms with her past as Astronema. This proved critical when the monster Magnetox appears and steals the Rangers' powers, frying their morphers in the process. Carone determines the solution is a powerful key from a warrior she once turned to stone years ago. In order to claim this key, she finds out she must first confront her evil past side, like she's in Final Fantasy IV, and then, only after she confronts the statue and atones for what her old self did, can her tears restore the warrior and give her the key. Yet, tears and Power Rangers are made of some pretty powerful stuff. This is exactly the episode needed for Carone once she became a Ranger, to prove beyond any doubt that the evil being she had been turned into through the years of being with the wrong people was truly no more, and that she was more than worthy of being a Pink Ranger. Jen stands up to Rancic. Jen was one of the first Pink Rangers to really have a direct take-charge personality, which makes sense given that she was engaged to the original Red Ranger of the group and assumed command after they lost him. As such, she was definitely a bit harder around the edges than most Pink Rangers, but this was understandable because of her focus on bringing in Rancic no matter what. And this showed in the finale of the Time Force series. Rancic finally goes all "I'll do this myself" and just wails on all the Rangers, Jen being the first one he takes down. One by one, each of the Rangers is taken out and depowered, but that won't stop the one who has more motivation than anyone to not lose.
My mission is to bring you back. And I promise you, I'm going to do it!
Don't make promises you can't keep.
Get me! Rancic!
Did you? can't do it. What have I done?
The result is Rancic being one of the only Power Rangers villains to not be completely destroyed, finally seeing the error of his ways and agreeing to surrender. Mind you, this was a lot because Jen's attempt to dupe him led in him injuring his own daughter, which I'm sure she never really intended to do. But it all came to be ultimately because Jen would not know the meaning of the word quit.
Kendricks, get out of there! I have you, Cassie!
Brace yourselves. You knew this one was coming.
Get out of there! And I've got to destroy it!
We've seen different examples of how courage and or compassion can make one worthy of being on this list. But nothing can possibly top when one is willing to make the ultimate sacrifice and ends up doing so. And that's exactly what happened with Kendricks in Lost Galaxy. The Galaxy Rangers and Space Rangers had defeated the Psycho Rangers in the show's first major team-up episode, but the pink Psycho Ranger was not destroyed, and thus her desire is to take out both Kendricks and Cassie. When Psycho goes after a powerful weapon called the Savage Sword, Cassie and Kendricks head after her. And two Pink Rangers against an evil Pink would have been enough alone for this episode to make the list. But when Psycho Pink plunges the sword into Cassie's morpher, it creates this energy surge that threatens to destroy the whole galaxy. Kendricks realizes that destroying the Savage Sword is the only option, and, well...
Kendricks! No! Kendricks! No!
Gotta work!
Kendricks!
Kendricks.
I'm okay. I'll always be here.
No one saw this coming. There had always been moments when a ranger was on the precipice of death or taking an extreme risk, but they always pulled through. This may still be the biggest shocker in the history of Power Rangers. Of course, for those that aren't aware, this story had to be written in all of a sudden because Valerie Vernon had to leave the show after being diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, she pulled through, and as a result, Kendricks was revived at the end of this series. Still, it really says something that the first one that ended up making that ultimate sacrifice was a Pink Ranger. It just goes to show, never underestimate the soft-hearted ones. Sure, most if not all Power Rangers have a desire to defend the universe, but Pink Rangers usually have just that extra bit of love and caring for life, and that can make all the difference. Kendricks knew what she had to do in this case, and she was willing to pay whatever personal price was necessary, and that's why her sacrifice stands tall as the greatest moment of any Pink Ranger in the history of Power Rangers. And so that's the list of the greatest moments of the other Pink Rangers. It's just too bad we had to end the list on such a downer like that. So maybe next week we'll take a look at something a bit more lighthearted and fun. Next week, Season 4 of Glee. Goody!